Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek, no other founders, just me. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is Teach the Geek to Speak. It's a public speaking course. You can learn more about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Demishia Samuels. She's an income strategist and business coach, as well as host of the Corporate Hustle podcast. Seems quite a long ways away from an industrial engineering degree, but I'm really curious to find out how she got to where she is and how public speaking figures into it all. Welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Demishia.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I love the name of this, Teach the Geek. I love that.
Thank you. I like it too. From the bit of research I did on you, just like I mentioned in the intro, you have a degree in industrial engineering. What was the motivation to get that degree?
So basically, when I was in high school, it was either be an engineer, a lawyer, or pretty much I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. And then I had a math teacher that told me about the various engineers. And I went off to Georgia Tech, like a summer program, and they said that the industrial engineer was the business engineer. And I just wanted to be over all the other engineers. So in my mind at 18, I was like, yeah, I'm an industrial engineer, so I can be over the other engineers. So that's kind of how it happened, because I knew I was good at communicating with, I guess you could say, geeks and smart people, but I didn't necessarily want to be the coder. I didn't really want to code, but I understood how to do it all. So that's kind of why I chose it. Now, what happened in, college and keep going forward was a completely different thing. I ended up with at Tech, and then with the marketing degree and the IE degree, and then thought that, hey, I'm going to go into marketing, but I ended up being a systems analyst. And so all day long, I communicate between my business teams and actual developers on what they should and should not be doing. So that's kind of how I just fell into it.
I did notice that you got an industrial engineering degree and then you got another bachelor's in marketing. Was that always the plan?
No, it just was, I was like, this engineering thing is not necessarily, I interned for GM and I interned for Ford, and I was like, ooh, this is not really, I was like, I really don't want to go into logistics. So I was like, let me get a business degree, because I was really more interested in the business side of engineering. So after I got that, that's why you see like Six Sigma Green Belt and Scrum Master, because I was more so suited to more so translate what goes on in the tech space with those who are in business. And I like that space better. So.
Okay. So you get these two degrees. And you did mention that you worked as a systems analyst. Did you work as a systems analyst right after school, or did you have any other type of jobs before that?
Oh, no, I had plenty of jobs. I had plenty of them. I was a Waffle House manager, which is always an interesting story. I was in collections, all of that until I got to my current position, which is I'm still a systems analyst. So by day, I'm a systems analyst. And then I also have my company, which you were mentioning, which is Corporate Hustle U, which is what I do. I guess it's like a full-time side hustle, because it operates with or without me. It's an automatic thing happening. So I'm still at Team Magenta. That's what I'll call it for this show. And I run, and I'm a systems analyst there. I'm a principal analyst, actually. And so that's what I love to do still.
Oh, wow.
T-Mobile's calling me. How about that?
So engineering, you got marketing, then you end up working at Waffle House, and then collections, then as a systems analyst. I'm guessing this wasn't all planned. Was it, or it was just kind of taking things as they came?
Yes, at first, because when I graduated in 2002, 2003, there was like somewhat of a recession going on, and I didn't want to leave Metro Atlanta. So that's the other thing too, for those who are, in the IT world. Sometimes you're in the warehouses and things like that, and they're in small towns. That was the other thing. I didn't want to go to any small town. So I did what I had to do to stay in Metro Atlanta, and then got into my career as my I guess my colleagues and my people I went to school with, as they progressed, and they were like, hey, this will be a great job for you. And so that's how I got into that company. And I've been there for 14 years now. So for me, it was like getting into the door. So all of the stuff that I named for you happened between ages 23 and like 26. So within that 3-year span, I was just all over the place. Like, oh, who's paying? They're paying. Okay, I'm here, I'm there. And then I was like, okay, let me settle down, get this resume together, get this networking together, and actually get into my profession.
Nice. So what? 14 years at one company. That you don't really hear about that these days. You kind of like, you're at one place 3 years, another place 2 years. Is kind of like that. But something must be going on where you're at for you to have been there 14 years. What's so great about where you're at that has kept you there that long?
So I think what's great is I've always been able to transform and move myself around, even though I kind of stayed on the same team. It's really weird. So I stayed on the same team, but I did various things to become the principal analyst of that team. And basically, we went through several mergers. And as we went through mergers, I kept getting promoted. So it kind of leads to what you were saying in the beginning, how I ended up creating that company is because I kept getting promoted and they kept changing my lifestyle. And as you change my lifestyle, I realized, wow, whoever giveth is the person who takes it away. So every time I got promoted, I would create a business to compensate for the fact that I got promoted so that I would never have to drop down in lifestyles. So it just so happened that I just kept getting promoted and I was just never a person that was handed the pink slip. Whereas I saw lots of teammates who were, and it's just because I probably transformed myself and I was somebody who did know the system and I could translate that and articulate it to my business unit, which is kind of what you were saying is where the public speaking come in, is that I have a great ability to go from techie talk and then translate that to the business with ease and back and forth. So they usually bring me in for that reason. And that's just a tangible skill that has lasted me these 14 years, is that I'm always able to understand both worlds.
So when it came to these promotions that you were getting at the company, were these promotions that you were going after, or did the company see something in you and offer you those promotions?
Both. So basically we are a performance-based company. So therefore from my performance, I was one of those people who, when I go into my one-on-ones, I'm usually like, what do I need to do to get paid more? Like I'm that person, I'm that employee. Like, what do I need to do to get paid more? Or what do I need to work on? And they would say it, but I would just go after opportunities that I saw that would be ideal for my team. So where nobody else wanted to run the queries all through Thanksgiving, I would. Or if nobody wanted to learn a new thing, I would learn it, write a procedure for it, train the other teammates, and then pass it along. And so it just be me willing to put myself out there time and time again and take work that nobody else would, and be okay with doing work that was outside of what I quote unquote was being paid to do. It's kind of how it lasted. So because nobody pays you, nobody promotes you for what they already hired you to do. You need to acquire a new skill in order for them to actually promote you, or a new value. So that's pretty much how.
You know what, Demishia? I think that's key. What you just said, how the promotions don't come from necessarily the work that they're paying you to do. It's from developing yourself so that there's other things that you can do. And then they see this, or you promote the fact that you're doing these other things. And then they see, you know what, Demishia should be moving up another level to another position. So are you a manager of people?
So I manage the vendors. I do not like being a people manager. I actually manage our technical vendors. So I do manage people theoretically, because the vendor is a person when you're actually on a day-to-day. But as far as from like an HR perspective, I do not manage people. I manage entire systems or a vendor or like a product.
Is that purposeful?
Yes, because I do. And yes, because luckily I was a manager, at like Waffle House and other places, to know that you are a part-time psychologist, part-time this, part-time that. So I knew early on I don't really want to bring people's drama into my life or have to be concerned with it. Not that all employees are dramatic, but it's still a little into that as well. What I actually found out is the more money people make, the more high maintenance they are. Actually, I know a lot of people don't even realize that from an individual level. I feel like at the low level, they were at the team dynamics, and you'll have like little mini HR issues as far as groups. But as you go up, the individuals who start to make six figures or more, to answer to them, they want questions to every single thing as it relates to their pay and income. So like the questions vary. But yeah, that's what I noticed, is that no, I'm good on asking that. And they want the promotions, and they're, coming with all the stuff like I do. And I was like, I wouldn't want to manage myself. So no, I'm good. So I stay away from it.
Yeah, I don't blame you, because oftentimes when people think the way to advance in the company is to eventually become a manager of people. But the fact that you were able, at least at your company, to find another avenue to still advance while avoiding managing people, I think that could be very appealing to many. So
It
thank you for
is.
sharing that.
And I'm at that tipping point where it's like, hey, Demishia, are you gonna go over into, you know, management world? And I'm always like, I know y'all can create like a senior principal analyst around here. You really need like, to give me more money. So yeah, I'm still trying to milk it. Like I don't want to go train or be over people. I don't mind training and doing. I just day to day, nah.
You know, systems analyst, senior systems analyst, principal senior.
Just,
You got titles.
Just add on some titles.
That title and more money.
Right. Just long as you can leave me with the same title, just add the money and I'll be okay.
Right. So I mean, I also mentioned in the intro that you're a income strategist and business coach. When did you develop, I guess, that side business, and what was the motivation for it?
So the motivation was the promotions because I did not want my lifestyle to ever drop back down to like being 23, or I didn't want to feel this pressure of corporate America. So I wanted to always have like a safety net. So originally they started out as side hustles. Remember, I had the marketing degree. And so my business specializes in helping STEM professionals create online businesses because that's exactly who I am. And all day long, I show STEM professionals how can you actually take your skills, monetize them, and create you an online business while you still work. So that's where I became the business consultant strategist. And then income strategy was always something I was into, meaning always believed in multiple streams. Don't ever just rely on this, because I had seen so many mergers and so many team consolidations, or my company has somebody tried to buy my company and I've seen us just buy a company. And so when you're exposed to all of that, you realize, you know what? I should probably have another, a few companies on the side here. And so luckily they promote that at our company. As long as you're upfront and it doesn't conflict, you can run as many businesses as you like.
Nice. So has it ever been an instance where you're working with, or potentially going to work with someone, and they bring to you an idea that you don't think is monetizable? And if so, how do you deal with that?
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't think that it's not monetizable, but what I do is I make sure that we do market research, meaning this might be your passion, but is anybody going to pay you for it? And so usually, which is why I like dealing with STEM professionals, because they're usually a little bit pragmatic like myself. So they're data driven, they care about the numbers. So I explain to them the concept of, if you're introducing something new to a market, that takes way more money. So how much money do you have to introduce something brand new that nobody has ever heard of, versus I'm just tapping to what's already there? So usually once I do that, they kind of choose the thing that is the least resistant, especially while they're still working. But there are plenty of startups and in that world and incubators, but I always tell people that requires you can't really work when you do that. Though the people who invest in you and promote that, they want you 100%. So usually that's the difference.
Nice. And then when it comes to the market research that you suggest that these clients do, what does that entail?
Oh, sure. So first, depending on what your product is finding out, just literally a Google search at first. Literally, just take yourself and Google it, right? Who is the large size company doing it? Who's the medium size? And then what are your competitors look like? Because I think of you as a solopreneur in the beginning. So what does that look like, to see what the end game is for what you're actually trying to do? So for example, I had a client, she wanted to Excel for engineers. So she wants to do Excel for engineers. And the question is, who does that target market? Where do they hang out? Are they willing to buy it? When do they actually realize that they need it? Right? Because she realized she needed her 4th year working as a computer engineer. So then where do the 4th year computer engineers hang out? So we're going to go look and see where they are and to see if we can tap into them. And then just going to see what the market will actually tolerate.
So for the people that you work with, is it more of a ongoing basis, or do they work with you for a specific amount of time?
So I have a coaching program that's about 3 months, and then I can go into a retainer if you need me as a strategist kind of on your team. And then I have done for you services that will build out their social media from that standpoint and give them the blueprint of what content should look like in that space. And then they can either take it on or give it to a VA or then come into retainer land and do that. And then I also have plenty of free training in a Facebook group that's just there that I'm just willing to help and answer questions.
Nice. And then I mentioned earlier that you have a podcast. What was the motivation to start that, and what do you hope people get from it?
Yeah, so I truly believe that anybody who's building a brand, because we all are, even if you're not managing your brand, you need a place for your thought leadership to live. And so there's either audio or video or written form. And I am the worst speller, even though me and spelling don't get along. So I was like, no blog for me. I didn't want to have to like get dressed and do my hair and do the whole nine. Like, you're okay with just, some earphones, turn on YouTube, but I knew that that would not be my life. So no there. And so podcasting was like, oh, I just have to talk. So that was my motivation for choosing podcast as my thought leadership home as opposed to the other two platforms.
Nice. And then I also saw from your background that you're a STEM advocate. Who are you advocating for when it comes to STEM?
So I advocate for women and minorities to be in the STEM fields, especially it just helps bridge the wealth income because that's where all the jobs are. I see all the time working in IT that, even us as Americans sometimes cannot fill the needs of all of the STEM jobs that are out there in IT land and engineering land. And so I advocate for us to learn and be in those fields because they are at this time in our economy, they're a safer career and a safer path for you to actually make sure that you're consistently being able to build income. So definitely women and minorities all day.
Nice. And I'm assuming that is your preferred speaking topic?
So I actually like to speak on agile methodology, which appeals to lots of people. And then LinkedIn training. So like building your brand using LinkedIn. And then if people need me, usually the kids is who I talk to about STEM. So usually high schools and colleges will ask me to speak on that particular topic. But my main one is having an agile methodology.
Nice. It's a good thing I asked. I was going to assume the wrong thing.
No, you're good. Yeah, I usually, from a training, it's LinkedIn and agile methodology because they go with my particular niche, which is the STEM professionals or your geeks and everybody else. They usually want to be agile in everything they're doing.
Wonderful. When it comes to public speaking, is that something you've always been good at? And if not, what'd you do to get better at it?
So one, I used to be in Toastmasters and I still am. I train in there. So in college, a little bit dabbed in Toastmasters, but all the way back in high school, I was okay with debate. So debate was like my first introduction to public relations or, PR or speaking. And then after that, the formal thing kind of happened with the Toastmasters. But as I got out here online, I realized that people are okay with you casually talking and being yourself and actually providing the information. And then over the years, just doing PowerPoints and presentations. So thinking about it from a persuasive conversation, like, do I really need them to do this? And even if you're in your one-on-ones, at that particular moment, you are on the stage and it is time to sell yourself. So those various things, when I realized it, I'm like, I'm okay. Now, my mom will tell you I've been talking since I was like born. So that part of it just comes naturally as far as talking. But as far as public speaking, I did get the formal training in college and a little bit after with Toastmasters.
All right. And when it comes to the presentations that you do you have a process for putting them together? And if so, what is it?
So I prefer to do presentations just like PowerPoint or any cool new version of PowerPoint that's out there now. And it's because I speak really fast country. So therefore, I like to make sure that my PowerPoint is there because it'll slow me down. It'll be like, these are the 3 points, and it'll slow me down completely. So talking live to you now and the way I present might be very different because there's no PowerPoint here to actually slow me down and to keep my mind where we need to be in the conversation. So my methodology is I always build it out in PowerPoint and then I take away as much as possible because people will read the screen instead of listening to you. So after I build it, then I edit it about 3 or 4 times just to strip away stuff. So that's just me speaking to it as opposed to people reading it on the slides. But yeah, my preferred method is that way, is to build it out with PowerPoints, no more than 3 points on each slide, and then proceed.
Wonderful. When it comes to public speaking, do you ever get nervous before you present? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
Oh, all the time. I usually listen to trap music to like to make myself to hype me up into going on the stage or to doing all that. That's usually my method. So if you think about like a LeBron James in the locker room listening on big headsets, that's me. And then I'm ready to go out there. Usually it's conference setting, so you don't get to always do it completely because you're in the audience and then you're going to be called up. But I'll try to have like an earbud and just listening to something that would get me motivated and hyped. And then I always just think about it like, you know what, these people bleed just like I do. They're human just like I am. And tomorrow it'll be just fine. The sun will always come up tomorrow and joy will always come in the morning is what I usually say. Even if you embarrass yourself, it's completely okay. It's a learning experience and you'll move on.
Yeah. So those are excellent tips. Just being a bit more, I guess, forgiving of yourself and knowing that the day will end and then the next day will come and you won't die. Even if things don't go as planned. And then also 3 points per slide, I think is a great tip too. And then also just using music to get yourself motivated, whatever, you know, your favorite music is. Can you offer any other tips that could help others in becoming more effective at public speaking?
Sure. I would say breathing, or if you learn breathing techniques, it helps is the main thing, especially if you practice. And I would say practice, 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 especially if you know it's some prepared speech and it's not just off and it's not off a topic that you talk about every day. Because nowadays you have live speaking and then you have your formal in-person speaking, and all of those kind of play differently. So if you're coming on like a podcast like this and it's a topic that you're used to doing, the first time I would just ask myself random questions in the shower. And if you know you're a nervous person, or if you're like, oh my gosh, I stumbled off a word, people are going to think I'm stupid. If you're one of those people who think like that, then definitely practice in the shower. If it's some long dramatic one, like a TED Talk, as everybody loves TED Talks, then definitely you're writing that completely out and you're practicing the breathing, you're practicing the pauses. And then what I tell people now is, I'm looking at myself, which is incorrectly. I theoretically should be looking like this at the camera and talking this way. If I was actually giving a speech, then I would give it this way as opposed to this way because I'm actually looking at you on my screen. So that's kind of like for anybody who's in this online space now, if you're on your Zoom calls or anything like that, or you're doing a presentation, look directly into that camera and ignore all of the faces. So those are the best two tips if they could see the difference in how I look at the camera.
Yeah, that certainly is a tip these days since everything is virtual. And they
Exactly.
probably will stay that way for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Well, so this has been really interesting speaking with you, Demishia. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about things you're working on?
Just to check out the Corporate Hustle podcast. It is on Apple and Spotify and all the things, and reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'm really excited. Let's see, I think in general, if this is about speaking only, then just make sure that you are courageous and you are putting yourself out there, whether it's in the workplace or a nonprofit organization or your service activities. There are plenty of places for you to speak, and don't be afraid to practice in front of your family, your friends beforehand, right? Because those will be your best critics. So that will be your worst critics, actually. No worries. Your family will tear you apart. So if you can get through them, you probably can get through anything.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Demishia.